I just want to start off by saying that this was my very misguided idea. I regret it immensely, and I feel terrible for bringing my friends into it. You don't need to tell me in the comments how stupid I was because I am very much aware. In 2010, when I was 15, I became interested in urban exploration photography. I absolutely loved seeing beautiful, eerie photos of abandoned shopping centers and hearing about all the awesome vintage stuff people would find at these places. I was originally thinking of going to famous local urban exploration sites, like a very well-known abandoned mental asylum called the Laburden Mental Asylum. There are many creepy and weird as fuck pictures of this place, and many stories of paranormal shit happening there. About a week before my best friend A and her boyfriend G and I were going to go, I got talking to an acquaintance, we'll call her S, at a party, who actually warned me off. She told me about how she and her cousins went there a while back. They were all very into spiritual and supernatural stuff. Nobody else was there that night except them, and apparently they got horrible vibes as soon as they walked in. While they were exploring upstairs, one of their cousins felt an overwhelming force pulling him towards a room, and just before he opened the door, he fell through the floor and slashed one of his wrists so badly he nearly bled out. She said she would never go back or to anywhere like that again, but if I ever found a cool house, to let her know. So I was like, fuck that, I'm not going. I mostly gave up on the idea and just didn't think about it for ages, until I found the house. So I was going for a bike ride one day a few months after this, and decided to take a different route than my normal one. I ended up running through this weird little pathway at the bottom of a dead-end street, and kept riding until it ended up at this park. I had never been there before, and was very, disoriented at this point. I was basically lost in my own suburb, more or less. Anyway, I ride through this park to try and find a water fountain, and end up going down this long path, which led to nothing except this really high stone wall covered in dead vines. The stonework on the wall was a really unique design, and it just seemed really odd and out of place. So I felt this urge to look over it. I stood on my bike, and even then was only just able to look over this wall. And I'm not short. What I saw was very, very weird. It was a mansion. The garden was absolutely overgrown. A sea of green broken only by a Greek marble statue pointing out. And the house was yellow. The bottom floor windows were all broken, but I could see the black and white checkers. It was the flooring, and there was more statues inside. The windows on the top floor were boarded up, except for one that had curtains. There was also a fountain in the garden that was all cracked too. It was the most odd and out-of-place house I'd ever seen. But I didn't have a camera or my phone, so I rode back through the park and picked a house number to remember, and managed to make my way home even though I got really, really lost. I instantly messaged A and G and S, the girl I met at the party. I told them that I found this incredible abandoned house, and we needed to check that shit out. my best friend immediately got super excited because the plan was we were going to start a blog and she would write about places we explored. I would take the photos, and her boyfriend was excited because he is super into horror movies and wanted to film stuff. S was a bit reluctant. She said the statues sounded kind of creepy, but eventually decided she would come. So we made a plan to go on Saturday night because G wanted to film at night. And we're all scared of being seen by people in the park, so it seemed logical. We'd meet at A's house, and G would borrow his dad's trailer to bring a ladder so we could get over the wall. So Saturday night rolls around. At this point, I was nervous because it hit me. We were breaking in, trespassing. And if we got caught, my parents would flip their shit and never let me go out ever again. But I ended up at A's, S arrived, and G arrived. We ordered a pizza and drank some beer and hung out for about an hour because we decided to leave the house at midnight. It was weird because it should have been awkward. A and S were only sort of friends. S and I barely knew each other, and S and G had never met. Plus, G was a 17-year-old dude hanging out with 3 15-year-old girls. And yet, we were all just vibing so much, and so mutually excited and nervous, that it was really cool. I remember distinctly thinking how the 4 of us were going to be best friends and do this all the time, and how cool the blog would be, and already planning where to go next. So we left at 12 and made it smoothly to the house. We made it to the number that I remembered, and G parked his car, and then this is where we encountered the first problem. Because I led us down the wrong street and it took about half an hour to find the park. And G was carrying this heavy ladder and getting really pissed off. So we finally find the park, and I just remember feeling a bit uneasy. It was very, very dark. No lights in the park or street lights. And it was really sort of still and quiet. So we start walking. I was leading the way and not even that sure that I was going the right way. The park had a really unpleasant vibe at night. It was odd in the day, but something just felt really isolated at night. So we find the path and walk down, and sure enough, we reach the wall. We were ages away from the car. I had assumed it was quick, but I'd been cycling the last time and not carrying a ladder and a camera. So once we reach the wall, G starts getting excited. A is nervous but pumped. So am I. S was just uncomfortable. She goes, "I have a bad feeling about this," the minute we reached the wall. G climbed up and looked over and shined his torch and freaked out, saying, "Fuck, those statues are creepy." He sits on the wall, and A goes up, then me, then S. We're all sitting on the wall, looking down at this sea of weeds and statues. S looked at me and shook her head. "I don't want to do this," she said. And I said, "You can wait here." She was too scared to wait, so we pulled the ladder up and climbed down. As soon as we set foot in this garden, I was just filled with dread. I think we all were. The statues were very creepy and human-like. Up close, their faces were just wrong. Like, features were weird sizes, and they looked really unsettling. Like their arms were twisted weirdly. We were completely silent. G is filming, and I'm taking pictures. We reach the back door, and it's unlocked. A goes, "That's weird." And we all nod. Once we step inside, we're in this huge, empty room filled with objects. Clearly statues, covered in sheets. G pulls a sheet off one, and we all scream. It's a Greek statue with a horrible, human-like face painted on, grimacing. "Let's get the fuck out of here," A says. We realize S has stopped in the doorway. "I have never felt such bad omens. We need to leave," she said. I walked over to her, but G was like, "Fucking no, this is creepy, but it's probably some local kids. Blah blah. It's a safe suburb. Also, my film." And says he's staying. I was too scared to walk back through the park without him, so we stayed. S is silently crying at this point. I felt like my heart was going to explode. So we keep walking through the house. I'm shaking too much to take pictures. We pass empty room after empty room, all filled with sheet-covered statues. We reach the bottom of a marble staircase. S is shaking. A is squeezing my hand so hard it hurts. And G even seems hesitant. But we start walking up. Once we get to the top, it's clear something is very, very wrong with this house. There are no doors except one at the end of a hallway, but every room is filled with odd, wrong-looking furniture. Chairs painted red in a pile in one room, tables that are too high, painted odd colors. Something was really off. We open a cupboard in one room and scream at a horrific life-size mural of some sort of bizarre person with inhumanely long teeth and hands. At this point, even G is freaking out. He was like, "Let's just check the last room and then get the fuck out." So we all walk slowly towards the door. Inside was a nursery, a black crib, old wooden toys. I can't recall what they were, but maybe puppets and strange paintings of clowns. I think, or maybe more akin to the mural of that person thing on the walls. We didn't even step inside. G said, "Let's go right now. This place isn't safe." And we head downstairs. As soon as we get down, we all freeze, because some of the statues had been moved up against one wall. We drop our stuff and run to the door. G kicks it open and we run through this horrible garden to the wall. I remember when I was nearly at the wall, S just screams, and we all turn to see a light is now on in the nursery room. We fucking scale this wall, jumping down and leaving the ladder. I sprain my ankle but don't look back as we all run through the park. We got in the car and we're all crying and covered in cuts and scratches. My ankle is swelling already. G gets to S's house to drop her off and just says, "We're never doing that again." And nobody says anything. He dropped me off next. Then they left. I had to sneak in through the back door so my parents didn't see me and freak out. S deleted us all off Facebook that night, and I never saw her again. I had horrible nightmares for a month afterwards, and my ankle has never been the same. I didn't tell anybody about what we saw, and neither did A. We're still best friends, but we never talk about it. Her and G broke up not too long after the event. Honestly, I feel like we are in the presence of someone or something very, very evil.